Okay, welcome everybody to episode 7 of Anime Talk Radio. Here with your hosts, me, the Ed Boy.
Cameron.
The Forest.
I guess, Eric. You could have just introduced us all.
I could have, but I want to hear you guys' voices.
Sure.
He never introduces us.
Exactly, you guys can introduce yourselves. Or I could, either way. But, so on this episode, last episode we mentioned the possibility of talking about openings and music, and then we never did it. So we're going to do that this episode. And we're going to talk a little bit, I think, a bit into probably our favorite openings. Maybe not exactly like a 5 or anything, but just like the openings that have stood out to us the most over time, the openings that have possibly influenced us or stuff like this.
We'll kind of figure it out as we go along.
Yeah, we'll just figure that one out as we go along. Just music in general and anime. And that's something that I think is very important for the medium in itself. It's just an extra thing that helps boost it, and it just gives it a certain oomph, a certain oomph to it that I like a lot. So openings. So off the top of their head, does anyone have like favorite openings that they just love? Like maybe like their top.
The show is fucking awful, but it was probably the worst of the season. But like this opening song, best of the year, easily, was If Her Flag Breaks.
Huh.
Never heard of it.
I still have to show you guys. I forgot to show you guys the other time, but we were drinking and whatever.
Oh, yeah,
but
yeah.
it's such a good opening. Like
What type of music is it?
I can't describe it. Like I don't know. It's cutesy and
Oh, okay.
the
So-
singer's voice is really
okay.
unique.
Okay.
Just like Happy Idol music.
Something like that.
I get you.
So is that this season or was that before?
No, that was like 2 years ago.
Oh, was that
maybe
like 2
3.
years
Oh,
ago?
okay.
Okay. That makes sense then.
Yeah.
That makes sense a lot. So actually, before we get into like our overall favorites, let's do the season first. So we've seen at least the first episode or second episode of quite a few of the episodes this season, right?
Yeah.
At least enough to have heard the opening at least once.
Or twice or a
Sure,
thousand times.
Yeah. Okay. So of this season, favorite openings.
Nothing really stands out to me because I mean, if like right now, I'm kind of looking on my phone to see which one's sticking out to me. But I mean,
Yeah,
if it
yeah.
comes to that point, it should speak enough of itself that like nothing's really be like, oh, this is the popping one so
Yeah,
far. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
all right, let's compare what even is there right now. I guess that one's all right. I guess this one's good.
I like Overlord's opening.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can't really go wrong with Myth and Roid, right? So
No.
No, that's literally it from this season. though,
yeah,
to be honest,
I'm going through what I've
I'm
been
looking.
watching.
Yeah, I'm looking through a bunch of shows, and it's like I didn't care for that one. I skipped that one. I skipped that one. I skipped that one.
I think we skipped most of them, don't we?
Yeah, I skip them all.
I guess I'll put the Cells at work, but I like that for a different reason. Like,
It's happy.
like with the Overlord song, I like it because it's this epic song. I like Myth and Roid for me have already been like something I bump on the playlist
Yeah,
when it comes up. But like with Cells at Work, it's just like, oh yeah, I can dig it for the moment. I guess it's cute for right now, so I'll watch it while it's.
I don't mind the
Yeah.
Idol music from whatever that shitty show is I'm watching. It's not that bad, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
But other than that, there's nothing this season.
Yeah,
I'm
there's-
like, I gotta listen
Thinking
to
about
it.
it, no.
The
I
endings
mean-
even too. There's no endings that stand out for me at all.
Yeah, it's like I like the animation for Hanabato's opening, but not the song, which is what counts. So no.
What about this year?
This year in total. So
Yeah, so far.
Well, I don't
so
even know
as
what the
as much as as great of a disappointment as the show came to me, I really do like the Darling and the Franks opening. I like it. I
Which
like
one?
I like it quite a bit. Well,
Second
the
one's
second
shit.
well the second one was just a variation on the first.
Yeah.
Like it was like a different arrangement.
Right.
But I prefer the first one, the first OG one that it started with, and I liked it a lot. It had someone from a band that I really liked. It had Hyde from Larkin Ciel, which I like a lot, and so I thought that was a good opening. But I think we talked about it when we talked about Megalobox, but that opening I liked a lot. That grew on me a lot as
So at
as
first
the
on
series
that
progresses.
show, the Megalobox, I was like, I'm not a big fan of this. I think by the 6th episode, I was like, I like this. I'll listen to it. And it just hypes you up after a while.
Yeah, but other than that, I really can't think of any that stood out to me.
You got anything, Cam?
I really liked Overlord 3. That intro's pretty badass. That's about it.
Do you remember any of the intros from last season?
I'm looking through them right now.
Yeah, nothing really sticks out to me.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
Those are like the only ones that.
I really liked Uma
kinda-
Musume's opening.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember it.
I
It's-
don't either.
So that
Starts
speaks
off
enough
with-
about
yeah.
it. Like
It
during
was
the
like,
moment,
I don't
sure, it's
either.
enjoyable, but like nothing really like impresses me. Like
Yeah.
in the sense, like not like in the sense like I have like these high standards that it has to beat you. No, it's like nothing really hits me. That's like, oh yeah, that.
That thing. I remember that
Nah,
thing.
it's Just
That thing was great.
not just like yeah, it's just another opening. Cool, catchy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I thought
Well,
it was
it's
so
a
good.
it's a pretty basic opening too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just an idol show.
Yeah.
I
So
know.
had that.
So since the seasonal shit obviously didn't work out, how do we feel about just ones overall that stuck out with us?
Ooh. So, probably for like the last few years, ever since I watched the show, and which gave me a love for this group in the first place. So, Flyers by Bradio is probably
Yeah,
one of my favorites,
I
if not
figured,
my
yeah.
favorite opening.
I haven't even seen the show, but I
Yeah.
listen to opening all the time.
It's just a good opening. I mean, obviously, I think part of the caveat or like the shtick with it is the tone of the song is the exact opposite to the morbid show that it is, which is Death Parade. And the show's okay. It's not amazing. It wasn't something that really stuck out to me. But that opening never skipped. It was great. I loved it.
That's
And
fair, yeah.
yeah, and that's one. That's one to me that's always been like way, way, way up there. But I don't know for you guys. I can probably think of more, but
One of my
Give me a bit.
favorites is Angel Beats opening.
I was about to mention it.
that's
Like,
yeah,
that
might
is a
be-
good.
For
That's
me-
a very good
for
opening.
me, it's not even like because
My
like it's a
Soul,
song
Your
that like I like oh yeah, this song by itself. But no, like whenever like that song came on for the fucking show, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
god, no, here we go again.
So my question is, which one was better, the piano or the guitar?
Piano.
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
The guitar just made me feel sad that the main character, the guitarist, was dead. I was like, or gone, or whatever you want to call it. At this
I-
point.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of songs too that I think probably stick with us more because of the emotional impact of them. Like
Yeah.
talking about that one, for instance, if you go with the Dango, that Kazaku from
Or
Clannad.
the fucking ending song of Anohana.
Oh,
dude.
there's the Secret Base from
Yeah.
Anohana. That's
Oh,
another
dude.
one.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. When that came, I'm like, no, Mitsuketo, and just start breaking down on the spot, dude. Like, there was a part after I first watched the show where I was just kind of conditioned. Like, whenever the song would play, I would just start tearing up, and my sister found out, so she just started fucking with me. I'd be like in the middle of like eating or like doing dishes and some shit. She'd just be hearing that in the back. I'm like, oh no, why? And just start breaking down on the spot. Big
Uh,
oof.
But yeah, I mean, those are two that off the top of my head, like I listen to, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, everything I felt while watching this show is just there now. It just won't leave.
Yeah.
It's depressing. Well, the one that makes me really depressed is the Crow song. The one that she disappears
Oh,
when
Frank,
playing. Yeah.
yeah, that's another good one. That's
That one
another-
hurts. Every time I hear it, I'm like, oh no, poor girl.
I feel like there's a few like that. There's like, and I feel like that's true with some hype songs as well. Thinking,
Yo, opening of Haikyuu, my dude.
Yeah,
The
yes.
Sore Fly. There's exactly. I'm
Uh,
like, that's it. I'm hyped. I'm instantly hyped.
that's opening number 4. Yes, that was the fourth opening. But I believe a lot of the openings for that show were just so good
Oh,
at
yeah, but
building
for
up
me,
the hype
number
for
4
it.
is the one that
Oh
sticks
yeah,
out.
yeah. That's the one that just it was a lot catchier, easier probably to remember as well. But it did. It just built on that, especially for what its thing was as well.
Yeah, that's the only one whose words I know up until like that first verse. Like when the chorus hits, I'm just like, I'm singing along. I know what's going on.
Exactly. And that's one that I like as far as hype songs. Another hype song that I liked a lot as far as openings were concerned was that very first opening for Boku no Hero.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember
yeah.
it.
That one to me was one that I actually liked a lot because every other opening that came after it I felt like just didn't live up to that first one in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like no. For me, I think what I would disagree with, at least in the emotion, I agree with like the idea of them like not impressing as much, but I think they've all just been hitting that same standard, and nothing has really been breaking out from what
okay,
they've
I mean,
already
okay, that
established.
makes sense,
So it's
that
like
makes sense.
because we've already been highly impressed with that first hit, like everything else is just like basically the same. So it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes
Well-
sense. I can agree with that. I like that a lot.
It's like Attack on Titan. I like the first song, but every other song after that is horrible.
I only like that first song.
I-
That's
yeah.
the only thing of the show I like.
I only know the first song,
yeah.
and it gets stuck in my head and then never leaves.
Oh, you're telling me about it.
The part that gets stuck for me is the Just that riff.
Yeah.
For
Not the whole song, just that riff.
For me, it's just like that opening, the season of this, and Diego, and it just goes, and then it starts into that. But yeah, it just gets stuck and it just doesn't leave. But that one's another good catchy one that was good in that sense. But Cam, what's your favorite opening? Like in general, what would you consider your favorite opening?
Huh. I'd probably go with, see if I can pronounce the name right, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid.
That one.
I really like that one.
That's a good opening.
That one's
I
actually
like
stuck
that
in my
opening,
head
I almost forgot about it.
forever.
I don't have the name for it. Dang it! I love the opening and the ending.
I don't know if I remember the ending.
It's.
Yeah, I don't remember the
I
ending.
probably
very
just
well,
ended
but-
it before ever.
Yeah, it is
Oh,
probably what it
really?
was.
Oh man,
I mean, I love the
I have
opening.
them both on my phone.
I like Fauna a lot. The artist that did the song.
Yeah.
I like them a lot. And I remember I heard them first on some other show that was absolute garbage, but I thought the opening was decent. I'm like, I like this group. And then Kobayashi's Dragon Maid came out, and I'm just like, I know this group. And I like it. This is a good opening.
Oh,
It's
speaking
happy.
of dank openings, dude, the fucking what's the name of the song? Hold up. Come back to me in a minute. I'm thinking about it.
Okay. Speaking of like kind of Kobayashi, Eurocamp's opening.
Oh fuck.
The-
Shiny Days, the Michael Jackson.
The Jackson
ripoff.
5 sounding thing
It's
with
so
the
good.
with the moving tent.
My favorite part's the
Fucking
moving
hate
tent.
that goddamn it intro.
Oh, dude, they sell fucking candy that's in the shape of Mount Fuji,
Yeah.
but one of them is shaped as the tent.
If I ever see that in person, I'm actually going to find you and beat you for it.
I'm gonna go buy it.
Eat that fucking tent.
I'm gonna be outside your window just shaking it.
But that's another. Actually, that is another good cutesy opening like that. That
Yeah.
just
Forgot
gets stuck
about
in your head
that.
a little bit.
I'm not even sure if I've
Uh,
ever finished that show.
Shiny Days. It doesn't really end. They just kind of camp.
Holy shit. I guess I'm not really missing out on
There's
it.
not a really wide story
Yeah,
arc. It's just,
that looking at it, yeah, I don't really has one.
it's just one of those things you watch because it's cute, you know.
Yeah. Should watch Encouragement of Climb.
It's another one.
It's a cutesy climbing.
Whenever I think of
Show.
Climb, I think of Overlord. So I think it's just
What do you
because
think?
Climb.
Yeah,
character.
Oh.
in
the
it.
night.
Okay.
Yeah, I always think of that, and I'm
I
like,
didn't think of that.
I've heard you mention that a couple times, and I'm like, I'm hoping it's just like a rip-off side story.
That's exactly
Just
what
really
it is.
shitty.
He's just climbing mountains.
It's great.
Did you remember?
Renee Circulation, my dude.
Oh, Monogatari series.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
good lord. By what is it? Kana Hanazawa is the voice
Wait,
actress
which
that sings
opening is that?
it. Opening number three.
Which character?
Yeah.
3. It's the snake.
The snaker.
Oh,
Nadeko.
okay.
And then also
Nariko.
the one that goes with the Phoenix sister.
Oh yeah, Platinum Disco. Is that what it's
Yeah,
called?
there you go.
Yeah, Platinum Disco from Nisa Monogatari. That's another really good
Yeah,
opening.
those are the two that stick out to me in the entire series.
Yeah, basically.
Like all the ending songs I really like. I like the first ending song.
the first ending song's amazing, but
Yeah.
it's a Supercell song, so
Yeah.
That-
Can't go wrong with that.
no, you can't go wrong at all. That's one I love as well. I miss Supercell.
Rip.
I miss them.
Big ol' F, dude.
Yeah, for reals though, because it's been so long. I mean, opening wise, let's see. I mean, what was the last thing? I don't even.
The
know.
last
It's just-
song I remember them making is a Miku one that they came out with. That was like promoting the
Oh,
new.
okay, yeah, okay.
Like not the newest, but one of the last two models that happened for Miku's voice. I think it was 13. I have
Yeah.
no idea actually.
Guilty Crown came after Bakemonogatari, right? Time wise, I think it did.
Think so.
So would that opening be probably the last opening they've done?
Off the top of my head,
I mean,
I would say yes, but,
that's what I said off the top of my head. That's what I would think, but I don't know, because I think that song comes out in the album after too. But yeah, that's probably the last one of Supercell, and I like Supercell a lot. I mean, I do like the stuff Ryu did with Egoist. I like Egoist a lot, and I like their openings
yeah.
a lot. Especially the ending. Oh, actually, those aren't even openings. The endings for like Psychopaths and stuff like that were great.
Yeah.
The opening.
The opening. For
The first
Psychopaths.
opening for Psychopaths is great.
It's the,
By Ling Tosita Seguire
Yes.
is the band.
It's Abnormalize.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah,
first opening.
yeah, exactly. By they did like the third opening too,
Yeah, but I don't like the other two openings as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, they did like that third one for
They started off so high.
the season that didn't happen, but
Because that was opening was hype. The first one.
it was a very good opening. I think it fit it perfectly.
To me, the most hype opening is One Punch.
That's a good opening. It's a very good opening.
Where they're just yelling. You're like,
Well,
what?
they're-
So that's my favorite one for different reasons. I remember when I
Wow.
first watched One Punch Man.
Yeah.
It was with Conrad, and he found a torrent. It had its
Okay.
own subtitles. So they translated the intro entirely what it would sound like in English if you don't know a lick of Japanese. So it's just a bunch of random English words stringed together.
What?
It was fucking amazing.
that is hilarious.
It
Actually,
didn't even make sense.
It's about the only one, English word in that song is One Punch, and then it was just a bunch of random
well,
words.
there's like the
after.
power.
Conrad, I need you to
Power.
I need you to find that. Show it to
Actually,
everyone.
that sounds hilarious.
It's just like a crazy torrent where someone made, I guess, the subtitles probably ripped before they came out with the official subtitles,
Yeah.
but it was fucking awesome.
I love like the Ronnie James Dio-esque vocals that group does for that song. It's just great. I just love it.
And they're an older group too,
Yeah.
which blows my mind that
Oh,
they
yeah.
can hit that.
It was like so after we watched them live for that one Anime Expo thing we went to like 3 years ago. I looked them up to see how much they did, and they have like a shit ton of like openings from mecha shows from like the late 70s, early 80s,
Yeah.
and all those kind of style of shows from that time. And I was like, oh, you guys have been around for quite a while.
For a minute,
Ooh wee. For quite a bit. And here I am just noticing you now in this one show. But
Who are these people? Oh, these people.
well, it's not even these people, because you look back and it's like mecha you never hear of. It's like the super obscure stuff that got lost from like the 80s. And
Yeah.
you're just like, cool, I guess. But it's a great opening, so I can't fully complain.
No.
It's
Good
a little
opening, good show.
It's very good. As far as opening dynamics are concerned, because I do appreciate openings that kind of break, I guess, some of the molds of openings, because it gets to a point when you watch enough shows,
Yeah.
you'll start noticing that a lot of the basic layout for openings is very similar.
Yeah.
Very, very similar. And I do appreciate shows.
Do you mean like the video or the music?
No, the music.
Okay.
Well, video as well. I mean, yeah.
It's like the songs were like made with the intention of like hopefully this gets picked up by an anime company so they
Yeah.
can chop this part and then they can bring this part into it and
Well, you don't even really have to chop it. It's more like it's the first verse and like the last bar.
Yeah.
The first verse, chorus, last bar.
Yeah.
Is basically what it is. If you actually listen to the full song, but you could tell the songs are like tailor made for them, and I do appreciate ones that are alliterative. For instance, one that comes out of the top of my head, which I love a lot, is the opening for the world. The world God only knows.
Yeah.
That opening's one.
yeah, dude, I forgot about that show. It's one of my favorites.
That song's
Yeah.
so long too.
I love it. So
Oh yeah, the original song's like
Yeah.
8 minutes long, but like but it's like layout is just so different, and it was just so good. I remember listening to it, be like, I like this opening.
I also like,
I like it a lot.
how I don't know what came first, the video or the song, but it looks like they were both made for each other in the sense that like, it's like they had like this intention in mind, and both were like, no, we're both getting this perfect thing just nailed, and I love it.
Yeah. So that's one I like a lot for that kind of reason. Another one, I think it was one of the last openings of Death Note is one that I like a lot, just because I like Maximum the Hormone, and it's a Maximum the Hormone song.
Yeah.
Should it ending or opening?
It's an opening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's like from, I can't remember. It's because I know they changed to like 2 like heavy metal openings near the end, and it's one of them. But
I skip both of them.
yeah, It's-
A really weird one is Witchblade's second opening.
is that the reggae one?
It's the reggae one. You're just like, what? Because it's like a darker anime, and then it goes to a reggae song. Yeah. Like,
Cool.
I thought this was supposed to be dark. Why is this like now chill?
Well, it's like the Death Note no, not Death Note, the Death Parade opening.
Yeah.
The same basic thing. You have a funk song in front of this morbid show. Another one I think I like a lot because of its differences. Oh, the opening for Ergo Proxy is one that I like a lot because it just sounds like a standard hard rock song, which is very different for animation, at least in that style.
So I know it's not the opening, but I really appreciated the musical elements used in Kids on the Slope.
Yes.
Yeah,
Which also has a good opening.
Yeah,
but-
yeah, it does. But like just like
Oh.
everything that they did with music in general in that one, given it was like a music based show, it was like
Yeah.
the main thing. But like, oof.
That was a great show.
I kind of want to rewatch it, to be honest.
Fucking love that show.
I haven't seen that one yet.
But
Mm.
what's
Norm-
up? Well,
Like speaking of music-based shows, like I really like Nana.
it's a good show.
All the music in that show is so good to me because it's like a rock. They're basically following two rock groups, and
Yeah,
They
and
got-
all their music that plays.
two different groups come out of it at the end. And it's just like so good music. It's J-Rock.
It's very good music indeed. Oh, speaking on the music in shows more than openings in itself. Fully Cooley.
Yeah.
So amazing music by
I
the
don't know
one.
about the
It-
new seasons though.
For me, going back, referring to the first season, like I liked it initially. I was like, I didn't understand much why. I was like, yeah, I like how this sounds, but like growing up, I'm like, yo, this shit was actually pretty fucking fire. I dig it.
Dude, the Pillows are great, man. The Pillows are a wonderful band, and they're the ones doing the music for the new seasons.
Oh, are
So
they?
I mean, it's hoping I did. I haven't
watched
seen
them
I haven't seen the newest one.
You
yet.
what using Toonami is a medium to fucking watch that shit, dude. Miss me with that.
For reals though.
Who watches TV these days? What the fuck?
For
What is
reals
that?
though. That's one that I just haven't watched it. I'm like, I know it's there, and I know the third season starting like in September, fall or something like that. But I mean, it's
Yeah.
one of those things that I'm just like,
I'd rather want to refer to those totally legal sites that we all use to watch.
oh yeah,
I love those totally legal sites.
exactly. It's just what it is, man. Sometimes you just have to do it if you want to watch certain things. But that's a music in a show that I like a lot. So in reference to music in shows and thinking about it, I don't know how much you guys have thought about it because I believe that like music does change a lot of how you view a certain show,
Yeah.
right? And I believe how the way music is used can change a lot. For instance, obviously if you saw like the music in Megaloboxing, I felt like it heightened a bit of what that was and it gave you a certain feeling.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that in shows, but it's something I feel like you don't see very often, if that makes sense. It follows, and this happens too with a lot of like big blockbuster films as well, where you'll have very generic, let's say, very generic action music or very generic dramatic music.
Or referring to Suicide Squad, where they straight up just take songs.
Or yeah, where they just
Let me
take-
just slap Seven Nation Army into one of these fucking clips.
Exactly.
Yikes.
But I mean, there's the idea, which is something that's something you don't really see in anime, but you do hear like the generic action song or the generic. We know there has to be music here because it's an action scene, but it could be basically anything as long as it provides that effect, right? And I appreciate it. I think a lot more in these mediums when the music's a little more tailored to the show in itself, if that makes sense. For instance, let's see. When I was first watching Boku no Hero, I noticed this a lot, right? So do you guys know what leitmotifs are, by chance?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
They're
so-
like little lighthouses.
Yes, that's exactly what they fucking are. Ding, 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 ding.
We have a loser.
We have a winner. But no, so leitmotifs are themes, right? Let's say
Yeah.
a certain character or an action or an idea or an emotion.
Or like, let's say like there's this constant use, like using everything outside of music. Say like there's a constant use of like rain portrayed in like certain areas.
Yeah.
It could be
Yeah.
a leitmotif
Yeah.
in the sense of how it's brought up and referenced a lot.
Yes, exactly. So
it's like a mini theme.
exactly, it is what it is. It's just a melody that represents something, and then that could be changed and arranged depending on how you would use it in storytelling, right?
Mhm.
So for instance, if you take Boku no Hero, you have themes for like All Might, because All
Yeah.
Might has this
Right.
theme. You have a theme for the whole. Almost every single time there's like a motivational something. Well, even aside from All Might, just like
Yeah.
there's almost a theme for growth, if I should say.
Yeah.
And I believe those usages, especially how they're consistent usages, like they hit you so hard in later fights and later things, because you hear this thing that's familiar to you, and you associate it with a certain emotion, and then it just compounds that onto the scene you're watching.
Yeah, then change a couple things about it, make it a bit more dramatic,
Yeah.
and boom.
Yeah, exactly. You change keys or whatever, is you add, I don't know, different arrangement. Yes, exactly. So, and I that's something I wish you would see more of
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
shows.
Because, like, it seems like other shows understand that something's going on there, but they don't really get how to go about it. Or, like, they don't, I guess they just don't pay a composer to go through the motions of that. But, like, I guess to give an example, like, there'd be, like, they would use, like, a clip of the main opening song
Yeah.
to in certain scenes, like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be something related to the character, let's use the opening song type of thing. It's like, or you could have just written something else specifically for this character and changed it up a little bit as we went along, but I guess just clip it. And like yeah, it seems like a lazy effort in an attempt to, I guess, cover bases.
Yeah.
And what other successful, or I guess really impressive shows would be going about.
Exactly. And I mean you do see it, and there's like certain directors that are famous for it. I mean, if you take someone like Sunichiro Watanabe, for instance, well, because you mentioned Kids on the Slope and the music and that, he's the director of that. And if you look at a lot of his shows, a lot of them are based around music.
Yeah.
I mean, famously, you have like Cowboy Bebop, right? Where the music itself was written pretty much before any of the animation was done.
Oh, okay.
And you see that a lot in like Samurai Champloo was pretty similar, and that way it's used music and how it used that urban motif to kind of almost familiarize the Edo period of Japan.
An underappreciated show that we all been looking over, that's covered like both the opening and ending songs and also these motifs. Naruto. Not even memeing about it.
That's
I don't know.
true.
Like not just like the main songs themselves, but looking like Naruto himself. There's like a theme that goes with it. There's a hidden leaf theme, and like the way that they would change those as like the progression is going along with the story, and like certain specific things are becoming about. It's just like, for me, that was like probably the most impressive thing about the show, right up there with the pain arc.
Yeah, okay.
Sticks out with me. It's just, I was really impressed with that.
All right. So two shonens. We have two shonens and one director's work.
Yeah,
right?
Going back to Boku no Hero, though, I found it pretty funny, though, how I think it was last year, he was hinting at maybe he'd do a tour to come to like the West to do a couple of his of the songs he's composed.
Oh yeah.
Because people were just obsessed with it. He's like, maybe if enough people get hyped about it, and people were just going at him on Twitter like, please
Come to us.
Yeah, I'd go to a concert by him, even if it was just like all the shit that we already know. I think just being able to hear a lot of the instrumentation live would be a nice experience.
Oh, it's so nice.
It'd be super cool indeed. I mean, composer wise, you have people like Hans Zimmer that do like Coachella.
That blows my mind.
Playing some giant organ along with like synthesizers and stuff. But yeah. So we have two shonens and a whole bunch of others. But
Well, going to like people, like Tanya thinks like that too. We never see certain scenes, like when it's supposed to be darker. It has like a darker undertone of the song when she's like killing just.
I don't think it's the
Tons
same
of
though,
people.
because like from what I'm remembering, I could be wrong on this. I've only seen the show once, but I always felt to me like it was the same song. It wasn't like something done with like a bunch of other shows like Naruto, Boku no Hero, that like they would be changing it as like the thing with motifs. It's like it has this underlying theme, but they keep changing it depending on what's going on.
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
with Tanya the Evil, it just felt like it was the same song. Just
it's just that recycled thing.
Yeah.
It's like when every time you fight a boss in like a certain game and you have
Yeah.
like the staple boss music.
Well, yeah.
well,
when
on
it-
that note, you go first.
I was gonna say when it was dark, they did one song, but when it was like something bad happening to her, it would be a different thing. So it would change up a little bit towards what was going on in her life.
Yeah, they would change the songs, but from what I remember, it was different. Like one songs for
Oh, yeah,
one specific
yeah.
thing. It wasn't
if
like
she's
in-
blowing up people, it's this song.
Yeah.
If she's getting killed,
Yeah,
if she's
and
getting
I don't
railed
feel like
on,
it's
it's
the
the
same
other way
though.
around.
I feel like it was a good effort, but I don't feel it was the same.
No, it's
No.
not. Because the thing with leitmotifs is like because it's just a melody and because you can change the arrangement of it.
Yeah.
What happens? It's like let's say you have a theme on growth, right? You have a
Yeah.
theme on growth and on getting better and stuff. And so what would happen if you let's say you have a moment where the character is having struggles growing or having it's like you almost feel like there's the opposite of growth.
Yeah.
You'll hear a variation on that same theme, usually either like in a minor scale
Yeah, no,
or
I get
drop down a little bit.
Or throwing in like some pauses, throwing in some like it almost sounds like it's distorted, but it's like
Yeah.
they're throwing in like all these different obscure sounds into it to kind of give this familiar feeling an unfamiliar vibe to it at the moment because of the I guess the feeling that goes
Yeah,
along with
it's
it.
like so where you can recognize the melody, but it sounds off.
Yeah,
If that
no,
makes
I
sense,
understand what you mean.
yeah, and that's the big thing. And I really wish shows did more stuff like that. But I don't know. That's one of those things that is just like it'd be cool, and I would love to see it, especially on like some of the epic scale. I understand like slice of lives and stuff like that. It's not you can still see it. I mean, it's something that could still exist, but maybe not to the same scale.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the shows do like this copy and paste, like, oh, they did this thing over here, so we should do something similar. And like something like Tanya the Evil, they kind of just copy and paste like this one song that they have set to cover all of the times this one specific thing is referenced, as opposed to constantly changing it or growing with the show and the progression.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But on the subject of bosses and shit, the music for Nier Automata though,
it's amazing.
Ooh,
Fucking beautiful.
the whole soundtrack is great.
ooh.
That's one that's it's just great. It's just too good. I mean, I remember when I first watched the trailer of that game. It's like the music was the main thing that hooked me. Like I remember watching. I'm like, oh, this looks like a hack and slash. I like this main character. She looks great. But this music is great.
Yeah.
And I mean that was something. And that's for something that seems very anime-esque. That is something that I like a lot. At least as far as how they used music in that game. I mean,
Well, each boss had its own different sound, and it changed throughout this like the stages of it too.
yeah.
My favorite thing was how they constantly referenced the main theme as the motif, and they like with like a certain boss fight would kick in, or like is there a certain like progression going through with the story? It's like that motif would keep coming up, and it's like, damn, this.
Mm-hmm.
And like kind of a little more hidden in there. I mean, if you don't really know the other games, but the composer throws in a little bit of those as well,
Yeah.
especially when it's referencing older characters and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And they'll be slightly different arrangements, and the arrangements will be mixed together with the new one and stuff like that. And that to me was always things that I'm just like, oh, I know this, but this just sounds new and exciting and great, and I like the way that's portrayed in the particular scene.
Hell yeah, moon memes. I like them too.
Moon memes, exactly. Exactly. And I mean, like I said, that's something that I would love to see, like in shows in general, It's just like I almost wish that in a certain degree there would almost be a little more care
Well,
on the music side of things.
if you think about animation, it's probably one of the last things they really think about,
No, probably.
because it's probably
It's either
animation or story.
last or
and then
first.
music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
personally, I would prefer it being first so that it could go and be worked on alongside the animation and everything else, so that it could be like fine-tuned to what's going on, as opposed to like feeling like it's a separate project that gets slapped on top of something that's
Yes,
already
exactly.
Yeah.
doing its
Like
thing.
for me, I feel like what would make everything great to me is, for instance, if we're going to take certain films, let's take Lord of the Rings, because I absolutely love what that composer did with leitmotifs and stuff in Lord of the Rings. What I love so much about it in specific, though, is that the way he designed it, you could close your eyes and just see everything. You could just listen to the music and you would know exactly what was going on.
Who's coming?
It was
who's
like
dying.
who comes in, who goes. The whole story just unfolds itself, because he told the story in music simultaneous with the actual thing unfolding in your eyes. So it becomes like this double impact of you receiving the visual stimuli and the musical stimuli. And sometimes even the musical stimuli will make slight variations on it that will hint to things in the story that your eyes might not pick up, but you still pick up because of what you heard.
Right.
And to me, that's something that I find brilliant, and that's something that I've always wanted in a show.
Yeah.
Like even if it only happened once or twice in some big epic tale, that's just one of those things that I've always wanted. To be able just to listen to a soundtrack of a show and I'd be like, I can see it all.
I don't like.
So
I can't think of any shows that really do it well though.
For me, instead of shows, going back to games, the one that really sticks out for me personally is Skyrim.
Yeah.
Certain songs would come up and I'm like, oh, I remember back in this specific scene when I was doing that and that shit kicked up. Or like, oh, I remember when I was walking down fucking Whiterun just out in the middle of nowhere and all of a sudden this fucking dragon came up and just started giving me the dick. Like, yeah, I remember that song just by telling me, hey, by the way, you're about to get fucked up.
Yeah, buddy.
And you got leveled up and then it was kind of a meme till like Ancient and Elder Dragons in that case. Just fuck me.
And the secret mini bosses. But
Fun.
But I mean, so that's something that, and I feel like certain films have really good composition to them. If we're gonna go with animation as well, Your Name does stick out to me a bit because what Radwimps did with a lot of that.
Shout out to Josh for thinking films only refer to animated movies.
Yeah, like but as far as like animated films, I think that's one that a lot of the Ghibli films as well. They play with themes and stuff like that. As
The Totoro theme. That's the one I can always remember.
Howl's Moving Castle's theme is one that always sticks in my head a lot. But other than that, even in films, even in animated films, that's not something that
No.
you never hear the famous OST of, I don't know, like Akira or Ghost in the Shell or any of these other older films of that time. It's like, even then the soundtracks never really stood out, like from what I can remember.
I'm looking. Like the Godzilla movies, they have some pretty good music in the background.
There's good music. There's very good music.
On here, I don't really see much that I've written down.
But like I said, there's nothing that really stands out. It's like, it's almost meh.
Are we talking only animated films?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, because because
Otherwise,
if we're
we'd be
gonna
all-
go with film itself, I can actually think
Yeah,
I can think of many
If we're
examples.
I'm thinking
but-
animated films, and all I think about are the Western animated films that really
Oh,
have
yeah,
an
there's
impression
that-
on me.
there's- oh, yeah,
Looking
there's
at The
that too.
Incredibles, looking
Yeah.
at The Emperor's New Groove, looking at a bunch of different films that like here in the West I felt had a lot of effort put into them in terms of like the production for it. Or recently there was what was the name of the movie that made it just cry our fucking eyes out? Just
Coco.
That one. That shit.
But that's just because when it came to like Disney's animated films and their animation department and Pixar's as well, it's like their usage of music is masterful, and that's something they really focus on because they understand how much emotional punch that provides when it's done that way.
Mm-hmm.
So and like I said, if we're going to talk about Western mediums, it does happen a lot. Well, it happens more often, I should say.
Well, because there's a lot more of it too.
There's that as well. But it'd be, like I said, it'd be nice on the eastern side of it to see that, right?
Yeah.
Like-
Well, I think you do see it more in the newer movies.
Yeah.
But like the older stuff, it was kind of pushed back. Like there is certain sound prompts for certain characters, but that's in every show at this point.
Yeah.
So it's not much of a new thing.
And it's like, and you have certain shows that'll like you can tell they spend a lot on their opening and stuff like that, which is nice. But I feel like the rest of the music shouldn't fall behind just because of that fact.
Like I kind of want to also. I want to and don't want to bring up Your Lie in April in regards to this. One, I felt like what they did with the music was really good. But then again, I don't know how much of that should be accredited to them and their works or how much should be accredited to the works that they were referencing and the works that was brought up alongside what they did.
It's probably more that more than anything.
Because there were a lot of interesting pieces that they did for the songs that they were playing and shit.
Yeah.
But then they would reference certain parts of it during certain times to try to, I guess, push the different motifs. But then again, I don't know. It kind of just feels kind of like a cheat because it was the works of these other people that were already well established, and not in the sense of like the people themselves, but like the song itself already had an impression on people. That,
and they just used that impression.
Yeah, there was their own bits when they did their own stuff, but like I feel like it's kind of like in this muddy water where I'm not entirely sure what was them and what was the reference parts.
Well, it's weird because I think most of the memorable parts of that show I can probably name off the songs they used, and they're like older classical songs that have been in existence. I mean, like I remember the one scene that I really liked is when they played Rachmaninoff's arrangement of Tchaikovsky's Sleeping Beauty Waltz. And that was a scene that I liked a lot in that show. But then again, I knew the song and I knew the arrangement, and just listening to it with like the imagery and stuff was just great. But then again, like we said, it was already a pre-established song. So that was in that thing. Like I think for me, what I want, at least out of one show, is the ability to watch a show, even if it was just once. Just watch a show and come out of it and like be able to hum stuff from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like for me, something that comes to mind in terms of being able to hum stuff. Another game, but I guess a series of games would be the Legend of Zelda games.
Yeah.
To be honest,
There's one.
And like how they would work, like just reference like the Smash Bros games specifically for when it comes to the Legend of Zelda music. Like what they would do with the main theme and the different maps and how many times they would have different iterations for that same map of that theme would play really well in terms of what they were trying to push for with that specific scene that they were showing in the moment or the map that you were on.
Yeah,
I feel like games like back then too had more music stuff because obviously the character has no voice, so they have to play the music to give him a voice.
Yeah, it also helps tell the story. That's
what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's the point of that. I mean, if like so with the humming thing, for instance, if we take films, almost if you would take any music that was ever composed by John Williams, you'd recognize it like instantly. You could be able to tell what movie it's from, even possibly scenes. For Mimi purposes, even though the movies themselves aren't the best. But if you take like the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack,
I was thinking Star Wars.
Well, that's why I said John Williams. That's why I preface it, because that's a John Williams work. But
to me, the problem is I can't see anime doing that because of budget reasons. Because you're naming things that are millions.
I don't
of
think
dollars.
that's a fair thing though, because these anime companies are fucking massive in terms of what they have backing for them, financially.
I believe they can, and I mean, there's certain composers that will stand out occasionally.
Yeah.
I mean, so a composer I like a lot is Hiroyuki Sawano.
Okay.
He did Attack on Titan's music, actually.
Yeah.
He also did Guilty Crowns and Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn.
Big budgets.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like I said, it doesn't have to be every show. But
No,
I mean,
but
at least on the big budget shows, you know.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
It should be something that.
Oh, another show I felt like did that pretty well, but not in terms of the humming it, would be Violet Evergarden, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with the
Background,
soundtrack,
Yeah,
but
it was
like
good music.
nothing really stuck out to me. It was like, ooh, this is my shit going on the playlist. It's like I'm just gonna appreciate it while it's here at the moment, but not go out of my like in my
not to listen
life
to it
outside of
normally.
this. I'm not gonna reference it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that thing that once it ends, it's not going to be playing in your head. You know, it's just that
It's not on your phone playing.
you're
all
like,
day.
I really appreciate what this is doing with the show, because that one actually does have a little play on leitmotifs and stuff as well.
Yeah.
That's another show that does that a lot, even though it's not anything that super stands out. But while you're watching it, you do recognize the themes that they reuse and stuff like that, which is nice. But yeah, that's always something. That's always something I've always wanted. At least out of one show, just have something like the music, have its music stick in my head that's not the opening. If that makes sense.
I think you just have to be listening or watching more just music-based shows, like Kids on the Slope.
Yeah.
The other one that he named.
But then that kind of dips back into the issue that Eddie and I had earlier with the whole, those are songs already pre-established and not songs that was created for the specific work.
Exactly. For instance, I mean, Kids on the Slope, there's a song they use a lot from, I think it's by Artie Hammer. I don't remember who it's by. but it's a jazz song, right? It's a
Yeah.
jazz song, and it comes through. It comes in a couple times because it's supposed to represent, you know, the friendship of these characters. But it's not something they created. It's something that's existed since the '60s,
Yeah.
which is where the show takes place, and it's beautifully done and it's beautifully used,
Yeah.
but it isn't anything new,
Well, they can go on
or
idol
different,
shows.
or different. But then
I
again,
don't think it's fair.
but so this is more what I mean in the essence that. So shows about music, it would make sense because the show's about
Yeah,
music.
that's
Shows
what I'm
about
saying.
making music. The show,
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be almost sad if it didn't have extra new music
No,
that
yeah,
didn't
I
stick
know.
with you because that's the full purpose of the show.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's say I'm watching a fantasy show
Yeah.
or a sci-fi show
Yeah.
or any other
First
insert
it comes to mind is
insert
Fantasia,
genre.
but yeah.
Insert genre here,
Another
right?
music show, but yeah.
But anything that's like a non-purposely, oh, there's only music in the show because we have people actually playing music in the show.
Yeah. No,
But like your background stuff, like, and have that music
yeah.
be complementary to like the animation, almost standing right up against it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
is something that I really wish. That's probably my biggest wish with shows now, thinking about it.
That's your biggest wish?
Actually, no, that is the biggest one.
For me, that's my second. My first is them using like the point of view as if it were like a camera and putting some more camera work into
Yeah.
what they're doing, which again,
Yeah.
Violet Evergarden
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought did really fucking well.
I thought
The-
that would've been
And
your number
so
one.
does the Badminton
like-
show.
That's like my number 2
Oh, okay.
because I feel
Those are
like
my top two, yeah.
yeah, because I feel like there's shows that are starting to do it,
Yeah.
so I don't feel like it's not as
Yeah.
high on my list.
Yeah, but then again, I feel like those two shows I can think of off the top of my head. Technically 3 if I count Kotora-chan, but like that only had it for like the first episode and the last, so I'm not
Yeah.
really gonna count it. I feel like they show that they understand the camera work is pretty important in certain scenarios, but then like there's a lot of other companies like, oh, let's just do the standard formula that we have for anime and not go over like the more impressive work that would go with that.
I
Yeah,
feel
that's
like that's more of the problem nowadays is that they're still on that formula and they just don't want to break away from it.
no, it makes sense. I mean, the Japanese aren't really known for, you know, breaking their norms and stuff when they have something established, which is understandable. Which is also nice when you have like new influences coming in either from the West or from Korea or from China and stuff like this,
Yeah.
coming in to help, you know, stir up the pot a little bit, you know, when it comes to that. No, that's why like what you know, it's not like for me the cinematography thing is something that I would love to see. I understand. I almost feel like that's more of a limiting factor budget-wise than music is, personally,
Yeah.
because you have tons of animators that have to do it instead of one
Yeah.
composer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but well, the problem is I don't know. I always feel like the composers always like the big names are always out there, but no one ever wants to use them.
well, yeah. Well,
And
I don't
gonna
get what
guess
you
that's
mean.
well,
like you have one famous composer, like if you go Star Wars, what else does he do?
he pretty much did everything by Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, so big budget. It's like the problem is if they're a big name, they don't want to do stuff for a certain like cheaper price. It's like certain studios won't do certain shows because
I
But-
think it's
but I don't-
generalization,
but I-
and I
but
don't know
yeah,
how much you take that to
Because
heart.
if we take like the composer for Pan's Labyrinth, for instance, which you know I love
Yeah.
with every fiber of my being, he's not a big composer.
no,
He's not. That's a small budget movie,
Yeah.
and that music is bloody amazing.
yeah,
It
Yeah.
was done very well.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not always the budget constraint or the using the big composer.
well the
It's
problem
just
is you gotta
finding that composer.
yeah, but so you have to find
Yeah.
the composer. But a lot of times, it's either hard to find the composer or once he's already been found, then you have the problem.
But even then, I mean, if you look at the Japanese composers, off the top of my head, I can maybe name 2,
See, that's the
And-
problem.
but not necessarily. It just, and those 2. Well, actually, one of them is more for older stuff,
yeah,
Yeah.
which is in my eyes Yoko Kanno, who did the
Okay,
music for
yeah.
Cowboy Bebop.
yeah,
And did the music for Vision of Escaflowne.
Yeah.
But then again, that's the 90s, right?
Yeah.
That's the 90s, and she was there, and she's worked a lot with Sunichiro Watanabe. And Sawano Hiroyuki is another one just because he's done so much stuff now, so much big stuff
So
that his name pops
my
up.
favorite composer, I don't know if I could count it. Well, he does is he only does music. He does music career. He does a couple other things
Yeah.
for fun, but like his music is his main thing. Is World's End Girlfriend is the name of the
Oh,
the
yeah,
monitor
yeah,
he
yeah,
goes
yeah.
by, and
Yeah, yeah,
his
it's a good
music
composer.
his musicality is fucking amazing.
It's great.
I got for me, I put it up there with like the Nier soundtrack and a couple other like big name pieces to kind of help you guys reference. It's like something I could just sit down and just listen to just for hours and just listen to all the different things he does in terms of his compositions. So I think it's not really fair to be like, oh, it's not whether or not they're finding the finding or using the composers as much as it's just like just ultimately not using them. And not going out of their way to use any music elements aside from like the stock clip this, clip that.
Yeah, exactly. Your standard like, oh, this show has a certain sounding song, and we're just gonna kind of change it a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, and it happens in film too all the time. I mean, there was a controversy when 300 came out because its music was like almost exactly the same as a movie called Titus, which was like an older film, but it was like an older, like super critically acclaimed film. So it was one of those things that the movie came out and people were just like, wait a minute, right? So it does happen, right? It does happen even on those levels. And I mean, there's a problem with a lot of blockbusters too. I can't remember the term exactly, but what happens is sometimes directors will edit things with like their own kind of stand-in music before the composer finishes their stuff. Yeah. And they'll be like, oh, I saw this song from this other movie, and I'll cut things to that song because I like the way that song sounds. And then they go to the composer and like, so I made these edits and I have the song, but we can't obviously use this song. So if you can make something like super similar. And it's funny because I've seen some videos that show comparisons, and you'll have like, I don't know, a song from like the Avengers and a song from like Transformers, and they sound almost exactly the same except for the variation of like two notes and some instruments. And so I mean that happens, right?
For me, a big one that sticks out to mind across medium platforms would be a similar riff or a motif with the opening song for Skyrim and the Pirates of the Caribbean song.
Yeah, those are both very, very, very similar. Very similar.
Well, you have Inception.
And that one's hard to tell which one came first too, because the Skyrim theme actually, or that music, or the Elder Scrolls theme has been there since like Arena, which I don't remember when that came out. And then
they're both older.
Yeah,
now,
they're both older. They're both older now. They're both like mid 2000s. Yeah. So maybe Skyrim might even be. No, I mean Elder Scrolls theme might even be older than that, but. That's beside the point. But yes, they're very similar. Very similar.
Well, that's what I was saying. Inception now, every trailer has that.
The foghorn?
Yeah. My favorite.
I think it's so funny that they all start using that now. The boah.
Oh, I remember there was like a span of like 2 or 3 years where every movie, didn't matter. You could be watching some kids animated trailer. Boah. You're watching like Animal Planet shit. Boah.
So Elder Scrolls Arena was March '94 when that came out.
Okay, yeah. So that's before.
Yeah.
That's definitely before. But definitely before. So, but yeah, I mean, so there's obviously some games that do it very well, and I mean there's some films. And like I said, it's just a thing I would love to translate over. Now, I know Eric said previously like about using the opening in the show, which I don't. It depends how it's used.
Yeah, but like for me, like the main gripe that I had and what I was referencing was how they straight up just take like an exact clip of what they use for the opening song, that does bug me. They're not like if they use that as like some as a basis and built upon that with different riffs, we're using different variations, maybe throwing in some diminished chords, and I don't fucking know, just fucking do some other things to it. The change it to show like it grows or it changes alongside with the work and not just like a copy paste effort.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is I always feel like
it happens a few times. It happens a couple of times.
I always feel like it's the main character either beating someone up, like something super is about to happen, or he's just powering up and they're playing the opening song, and you're like, oh, thank God.
For instance, I think a good example of how it could be done correctly is, for instance, I referenced the ending of Clannad, right? The first ending of Clannad, the Dango one, and so over the course of that show, that ending kind of attaches itself to a character, and like,
or I guess like in a certain experience, honestly. Like it does attach itself to a character, but there's a moment where like another character would go through something similar, and like the song would be. Like,
I almost felt like, well, with the other character is always in reference to the other one, because the other one was obsessed with dangos.
Right.
Good old Nagisa, but
Rip.
but like, so that's a theme that keeps coming on later, and I think that adds the impact to it, because the first season's like a cheery slice of life. It's it's whatever's, right?
Yeah, it's like the typical anime that you would see from the era with the moe-esque beginnings.
Yeah, and it's just a super happy thing. And when you hear that first ending, there's like nothing that really comes of it. You're just like, okay, this is different, this is strange, but I like it.
Those last 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Oh.
But that's the thing though. It's like, so that when that song attaches itself kind of to that character, or I guess the idea of that character,
Yeah.
and the show progresses and they start using it, and they build it in your brain to a point where, like, if I hear this melody, even if it's grand, even if it's minor, it's like, if I hear this melody, I think of this character. And so when things start going downhill, and things start going sad, and then the song plays, and you're just like, oh my gosh, what is this show doing to me?
I'm gonna have to say a show that kind of does that would be like Agresco, when she's going into like her scream mode. It always starts off with the either that or the da-da-da-da-da, with the hard guitar. And you're like, oh, I know what's about to happen.
And that's appreciative. But that was one of those things, and now to the point, it's like not even the original time when I watched that ending, but every time I watch that ending afterwards, it's just like, why are you doing this to me?
I get depressed.
Yep.
I get really depressed. But then again, I guess that's just referencing the more powerful, more impactful emotions that you feel, rather than I guess the overall arcing one. Because I think honestly there were more happy moments with the song.
Oh no, there were.
But just the sad ones were so powerful. You just supersede any type of connotations I have.
I think why it hits you so hard though is that contrast.
Yeah.
Just because in your head you realize that the song can be in both high and low. It can be in both happy and sad, and it's just like that contrast between the two, I think, is what makes it as powerful as it is. It's just like, and I believe that is a very good usage of music in that sense, where you can have a theme, and you can almost have that same theme as long as it's tied to like a character, an idea of a character or something, and it could be seen in lighter moments and darker moments. And because of those lighter moments, when the theme hits in the darker ones, it just hits so hard. Which, as I said, is something I would love to see in shows. That doesn't happen very often.
No, unfortunately. It's pretty sad.
Doesn't happen very often indeed.
Yeah.
But like, music and anime, like, at least if we went back to openings, I feel like it has kind of
stagnated, maybe.
Yes, it has, but in a certain degree, it also, at least over time, it's kind of stuck with us, and it's like a certain thing, and we recognize it when we listen to it. But yes, that lack of innovation does kind of, and I feel like as time progresses, even though there's more content, because there is, right? There's more shows coming out. There's more, even different things for different audiences. There's just a little bit for everybody. But even now that there's so much, and even now that there's so many, I feel like there's almost less innovation.
Yo, if we're talking about innovation, nothing stands out to me more than Made in Abyss, I think.
Oh, that's a good music one too. Actually, thinking about it, musically, that one's really good.
We're not talking about just the storyline.
Yeah,
the storyline's fucking amazing.
Oh, it's great.
The art is fucking great. Not just the music itself.
Yeah,
like I feel
that's
like that's
another
probably
good one. I
the
forgot
most
about that
innovative
one.
that I've seen in like the past maybe.
I forgot about that one. Good. Yeah, that one's really good. That one's super good. But there's one show. There's one show. I mean, and that's the thing though, and I feel like
it is getting season 2 though, so that kind of speaks for itself in terms of the impact that it's had on the public and also the impressions that it's made. Because, fuck,
it's a good show.
It only gets darker from here.
It's a happy show.
Did you read what comes?
Oh,
okay. All right. Okay, that's. I'll take that as that then. I'll take that as that. But
I can't wait. I need other people to suffer with me.
I'll take that as that. But yeah, and that. So, but still, it's not something that happens very often, even though we have more stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like if you look back, you can see where innovation points happen.
Yeah.
And I feel like it happens more often.
And especially because not just referencing music, but in terms of like animation and like what's drawn in, there seems like to be a lot of references to certain things.
Yes.
Like, remember this? Oh yeah, this was our reference. We're paying homage. Why are they paying homage? Oh yeah, because it basically said what this show is doing.
It set precedents, right? It set precedents. And some of those precedents were even outside of animation in itself.
Yeah, a good chunk of them.
I mean, if you look at like I think I've spoken of this before, but like what Blade Runner did to sci-fi anime is something that like completely changed the whole look and feel of a lot of that and ideas of it. But those innovations do come like in others, but it's something that as time progresses you don't see as often, which is sad, seeing that there's more. I mean, it's not like with other mediums, you know, if you look at music and if you look at films, there's always be the people like, oh, you know, the golden age was back when, you know, the golden age was behind us, right? That's when all the good stuff happened. But then you forget.
I hate that mentality,
I know. I understand. And that's what I mean. I mean, in that sense, in those mediums, you don't realize that all the shit that came out with it. Because I mean, a lot of stuff happens. Like you can go back and be like, "Oh, I love '80s music." I'm like, "Do you really?
Like,
do you really like
lot of it
'80s?"
was shit.
Exactly. Do you really like '80s music? I mean, I understand their standouts. I understand there was, you know, their geniuses in the medium.
That's every year. It's
Yes.
like, oh, I like this year. I like that year.
Exactly. But I feel like anime is a little different in the sense that you only could make a limited amount, and now you can make so much more. It's almost the opposite effect, in a sense. Does that make sense?
That like.
It's like it does it does and it doesn't. It does and it doesn't. Like, so I mean, I guess in the sense that the standouts stand out probably a lot more.
Yeah.
In that sense, because I mean, yes, we'll say pre-90s. I really don't like anime that much, like at all. But like when the major changes came in the 90s, I mean, there is a lot of shows of that time period that are great. Obviously, there's shit ones too. There always is.
Yeah.
But you only had like 5-6 shows coming out in a season.
Yeah.
Like in those time periods.
Like we have 40 now or whatever it is.
Because actually in the 80s, I was looking back and a lot of shit came out. There was a lot.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot
of garbage.
There's a lot of garbage. And there's like nothing that really stands out. Like nothing really. And then you hit the 90s and then you have like
More
full
shit.
years.
And then you have more shit like Akira, just god-awful garbage just thrown out there with
Great
everything else.
animation, though.
God, I fucking hated that movie. It was such a waste of time.
The animation's so good, though.
Not even.
Oh, yeah. You should take
The hand-drawn shit, sure, there's an appreciation for the
Yeah.
aesthetic, but
Yeah.
the movie itself was pretty shit. Even with
Oh, yeah.
the hand-drawn stuff didn't look good compared to other hand-drawn stuff. Like if
That's
I
true.
was, if I was thinking,
That's true.
let's think what's good hand-drawn show. Oh yeah, Cowboy Bebop. I can think
Cowboy
of
Bebop's
Megalobox. Am I gonna think of Akira in the top 5? Fuck no.
No.
Absolutely not. The art, like, sure, the art was hand drawn. Sure, there's an appreciation for
Yes,
it, but like,
yes.
nah, it was still shit. And even
That
how it
makes
was
sense.
drawn was still kind of shitty looking with, in terms of what they did with it.
I don't really like the character designs of this show. But
No, the character. Well, that was just weird.
that's
general.
not.
I don't even remember the soundtrack.
because there wasn't a good one. It just
No.
it's not that great.
No, I don't.
It's
no.
not. It's not that great.
All I remember is that sour taste that I left in the mouth. But anyway, so shit in the 90s.
Yeah. So I mean, so there's certain things that do stand out, and I feel like there was that revolution, and then the 2000s you hit another revolution, and there's more stuff.
The good old Moe revolution.
I know the good old Moa revolution, right?
That's every year.
And then the late 90s, it's kind of formed into what? The late 2000s, it's kind of formed into what it is
It
now.
kind of turned to like this. It kind of feels very modern in the sense that it's like a mix of both counterculture and also like the regular culture, just kind of pushing each other along.
And I do see that over the time periods, but I feel like let's think of this. I mean, we can look back into the 90s and see certain innovations or certain breakout shows of the time, and we look at them now and we appreciate them for what they were, even sometimes if we don't agree with the animation style and stuff, because it is older and it is different, but I feel like more risks were taken then, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's more what I mean. That's more what I mean with it. It's just there was a lot more risks taken at that time than now, even though there's just so much more
Like
now.
you could think of like the initial moments when they're like, should we show a dead body? I don't know, man. It's a fucking dead body. How are the people gonna react to this? but at the same time it goes well with the story. All right, guess we'll do it. And then like, oh shit, this is amazing, cool. And everyone's like, yeah, we have to throw dead bodies in there. Why? Just fucking throw it in, dude. It'll work.
Just do it.
It'll work.
Just do it. And I mean, maybe with the whole thing I was trying to bring along, that's kind of more what I meant. It's more what I was kind of trying to hone in, is the fact that there's not as much risk taking now, even though I feel like it's much more open of a medium, if that makes sense. Like I feel like there's more opportunity to do it,
Yeah.
but it happens less.
I don't know if it happens less or you just, because I don't even know how to explain it. Because it's like, I think it still happens a lot, or not a lot. Like it just didn't happen a lot then. Or
So maybe it sticks out more. I don't
yeah,
know.
because like,
Well, like-
you, as you said, there's 5 shows and they do
Yeah,
stand, or like one would stand out
yeah.
every so often. Now we have like 40 shows, but one will stand out.
But sometimes not even one stands out.
Most of the time. Not even
Most of
once.
the time, not
Yeah.
even one stands out. At
That's
least that
true.
time you'll have at least one a season.
Yeah.
Like I'd have to look through and try to remember like between like mid 2000s to like early 2010 to 2011 esque era. So I could think of a handful of shows, but
Yeah.
overall there's like not like, oh, this season had this season had that. It's like, oh yeah, they had that. Like I guess like I remember surprised.
In my head, it's almost categorized by year, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
more than season itself.
Yeah.
It's like I remember that show came out that year,
yeah.
and I remember it was really good, and it stood out that year.
I don't know. I feel like it would be the same if you look back too. It'd be kind of similar. Because it's like, as I said, it's like music. You look back, you say, I like this genre.
Well, yes.
And then you go forward, there's way more music now, but you can pick out one band or 2 bands or this and that.
But percentage-wise, it comes out to less. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, obviously,
Yeah.
it would have to.
And it's what I mean.
Per
it's like
capita of anime.
yeah,
Yeah.
like or per capita of any medium,
Yeah.
right?
Well, when you're doing 20 times the amount of animation a year.
You should see 20 times the innovation.
Yeah, but you also have 20 times of doing the same show.
See, and that's what I mean. I mean, the thing is, it should be a consistent percentage throughout, not lesser.
I don't know. Maybe. Because it's almost any media. Like movies, TV. There's so
but
much
the
of
thing
it.
is, the thing is, even I think film in itself, I don't believe that's necessarily true, because I do see a lot of innovation and stuff even on the indie scene and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I see it. I for movies, I could think of it more as if it were per season, like with
Yeah.
anime, or what we would
Yeah.
expect out of anime. Whereas with anime, I'd get like the expectations that I guess would be.
So
stereotypically
with
associated
film,
with the movie.
with film, I do feel like that percentage is still a little consistent, because there's still, like I
Well,
said,
Or like there's like a year where like just this wave of just shit tons of like innovative
yeah, Yeah.
pushes just come through, and it's like fuck.
and it still happens, you know.
Yeah.
It's still a thing. I mean, and the thing is, you have smaller directors sometimes coming in and doing
Oh, yeah.
great things as well, right? And
Yeah.
innovating in their own right. So
I
I feel
wonder if it's easier because it takes less crew. Like, because you can have more indie stuff.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know if you can name what's an indie anime.
that probably isn't done by like a major. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Not done by again White Fox stuff at first.
Yeah, White Fox at first.
yeah, but
Right now, like I don't even know if they'd be considered something to be too big because
They don't really
how
do
many-
anything. That
Yeah, I was about
big.
to say, how many shows have you seen White Fox do since their first couple ones? I would still consider them an indie
So
one.
I guess
they
your,
ha- I know
your
that-
biggest show.
I know they have a hand in a couple
Yeah,
things. but
I guess your biggest show would probably be Ray Zero, because that's White Fox.
which is like I would consider that more as their breakaway. Like
That is their
as
breakaway.
opposed to something that's like this is what you kind of expect from them. Type.
Well,
of,
I think their first major breakaway was Steins Gate,
yeah,
because White Fox did Steins Gate.
yeah.
Whether you knew or not. Yeah. But White Fox did Steins Gate. So, and now they did Razier. But it is a studio that doesn't come up very often,
Yeah.
right? And
I personally, I'd feel like they would be like an indie representative in terms of like how they're not like this machine that just
Yeah.
pumps out lots of stuff, and they kind
I-
of just do things with their own pace and their own.
I feel like Trigger was that at the beginning as well.
I feel it was, yeah.
Because it was one of those things that was just born out of the ashes of Gainax's just explosion. And I mean, it started out that way. Obviously, it's a bigger
Yeah.
company now, and it can do more now. But even then, they only do like one show at a time. It's not.
well, they
It's
try to do
not.
a
It's
lot
not
of
like
animation.
someone like A1
No. like
or
20
or Production IG, or yeah, but they're ones to me that stick out that just do multiple or Toho,
Yeah.
or
See, that's my-
those bigger
So
companies.
that'd be my argument. It's just like I think it would be easier to do indie, obviously movies.
They
so you
probably
can have
would, it
more of
probably
that.
would be.
Technically, I would also say Ruby as an
Yeah.
indie one.
Yeah, it would be.
Except
Rooster Teeth.
Rooster
Ruby-
Teeth kind of is in that sense.
Except not only would I consider it like an indie, I just consider it god awful, but it's so great in how awful it is that it's just, and, like, for me, going on a tangent thought, like I like and I love Ruby quite a lot because of how bad it is. It just feels so raw and authentic to me. It's like, look at how shitty they are in this. Like, it feels natural. I like it, and like that's kind of what stuck with me.
And the thing is too, like I don't know if there, at least nowadays. Well, nowadays actually Indian animation is becoming a little bigger
Yeah,
because you
It's easier to do.
it's easier. I mean, so I mean, you have like some of the people who are picked up by Netflix. Remember, Netflix is not doing the thing; they're just
No,
kind of helping
yeah.
fund it. And it's these smaller studios and stuff that are actually
yeah,
making.
the publisher. For
Yeah,
it,
they're making the stuff, right? And there's even like, if you look now, there's some Kickstarters and stuff like this. I mean, if you look, Little Witch Academia was actually a Kickstarter. The full
Yeah.
series was a Kickstarter.
Thank God it went through. Thank
Yeah,
God.
exactly, and that was a Kickstarter, right? Because Trigger wasn't that big to take on something like that.
Oh yeah, at the time.
Yeah, at the
Definitely.
time. I mean, even when they did Kill a Kill, it wasn't only them; they had help from dying Gynax.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
mean,
Triggers had help all the way through.
oh, exactly. So they're kind of like
on
yeah,
their last one.
yeah, exactly. Almost all of their new ones have someone
Yeah.
helping because they're a small company, right? So it can be done, right? And you do see changes in animation style and stuff because of that, right? Kyoto Animation used to be the same way. They started out like really small. I mean, Full Metal Panic is not the best animated show in the world.
No.
Pretty awful actually, when you really think about it. Same with
Yeah,
like
standard.
if you look at Harumi.
There's
the
a lot of like,
melancholy.
comedies that I would consider would be indie works in themselves. Maybe they get pushed by a big name.
Yeah.
But overall, like the work group that's directly with it would be
It's
like
a
a smaller
small
one.
group.
Like looking at Nichijou and
Yeah.
both the boy one and also the girl one
Yeah,
that we
yeah,
started
yeah,
watching
yeah.
recently. Like I felt like they kind of had like an indie approach in terms of how they were handling the show.
And they do. So I feel like it does exist, you know? I feel and
Well,
and
it's there. It's just not there percent wise as other.
well, it's the same. Oh, yeah.
I can name you like a million indie movies.
But like I said,
Don't give me that
like
crap.
anime is a growing industry in
Yeah.
itself, and it's like
Well,
it's something that's coming into its.
It's like indie games that are done by like one person.
Yeah.
It's you can't really get that as much because it takes so much time. Like
Yeah.
the indie games that are done by one person take like 8 years.
Like for instance, have you seen
Cuphead.
Cuphead, Owlboy? If you ever saw that,
Owlboy,
Yeah.
that's like super high res pixel art
Yeah.
done by one. It took him 9
Stardew
years.
Valley.
Yeah,
These all take like 8 years.
it's
and
true.
You're just like, I think if anime tried to do like a one person thing, and if it took 8 years to make, the art style would probably be shit looking compared to what we would see now.
Would it though?
Think about 8 years ago. 2010.
No, I do I do understand like the limitations of, but would it though? I mean, if you think about it, I can go back and watch Jurassic Park, which came out 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and it would shit on a lot of modern films.
Yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
talking about animation. Art changes.
Yeah, like the philosophy is still there though. Like it's not just the in this specific niche environment you're trying to prompt, but like
Yeah.
the general philosophy is still there that
No,
he's
yeah.
trying to
It,
address.
it happens though. I mean, like we look at older, even some older animation shows, and we'll still watch them, and I feel like they shit on a lot of modern stuff.
Yeah. But
So it still can happen.
no, I know. But the problem is animation moves so quickly that it like you can go back to your 90s, like obviously.
Yes.
And the art style looks great.
Yes.
But then to me the 2000s, 2010s looked horrible.
The
So-
2000s are pretty The
so
2000s
it's like-
weren't that great.
If animation keeps moving at this pace it's moving at this point, that 8 years ahead, if we go back, it might not look as good. Like if I said this was 2010, we go back 8 years. I'd say,
But then you get things like megaloboxing though.
no, that's fine going back like 20 years.
Yeah.
But there's like certain, because that hits more of your what do you call it, nostalgia. 'Cause
Yeah,
you're
that
like,
makes
oh,
sense.
this is
That
what this is.
that does make sense.
But 8 years isn't very nostalgic.
It is if you did it in an older style.
Yeah.
Even then,
But then it's
like I
20
said,
years
like
and
like I
stuff.
said, if we take like Owlboy for instance, was done in a pixel art style,
Yeah.
which is nostalgic retro as fuck.
Could
Right?
even
But that's
reference
the-
going other platforms. Could reference how Bioshock was approaching a lot of its
Yeah.
a lot of its methods. You could also approach recently the Shape of Water by Guillermo del Toro
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
and how both it was filmed and in the visually how it looked, and also
Yeah.
like a lot of the
It's an older style.
Yeah, I feel
So-
like that hits you in the nostalgia of this is what the style you want.
But then a person can still do that. I mean,
No,
if
yeah,
I'm going to take like an 8-year endeavor to draw this thing,
yeah.
I can take a style at like 10 years ago
Yeah,
and
no,
run with that one all
Oh
the way
no,
through.
I'm not saying.
And you know when that one drops in the 8 years when it's over,
Yeah.
everyone's going to be like, "Oh my gosh, this is great."
But like, if you want to draw something in the style now, because that's like, if I wanted to draw my animation, if you do it now, 8 years from now, it's probably gonna look like shit.
I feel like our style now isn't going to move around much.
It might not, but it's hard to
Like
tell. It's really hard to
quality wise,
tell.
I feel like it will.
I feel
Yeah.
like there'll be a bit more finesse
Yes,
and
yes,
use
yes,
of and
yes.
use of the CG blending
Yes.
with
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yes.
But in terms
yes.
of like anything else, I personally can't see too much being changed up with that.
No. Like
Mm,
I don't
yeah.
I don't see it moving too far.
Yeah.
Like I do see, like I said, I do see quality upgrades now that people are starting to get used
Yeah,
to
but the
using
general style, I
computers.
feel, will stick around.
Yeah,
I can see that. Yeah.
and even then, like certain studios, they haven't changed.
No.
Like I mean, if well, let's take Kyoto Ani for instance, they're a fairly new company.
Yeah.
They've been around in the past about 10, 15 years, right?
Yeah.
From Full Metal Panic. But if you look at from Full Metal Panic to Violet Evergarden, which would have been their last one, their character designs haven't moved much.
But you could also bring up
Yeah.
Like quality has,
Yeah.
but their character designs haven't
you,
moved much.
a sharp contrast to that. You could bring up Kobayashi Dragon Maid, which also done by them.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they just went off. They wanted to use the manga.
Yeah. The
But
fluffy
the thing is, like,
characters.
with a lot of their own adaptations, because a lot of the stuff they did, it all looks fairly the same, like character wise. I mean, you can watch Sound Euphonium, you can watch Hyoka, you can watch Tamako Love Market, you can watch fucking Amagi Brilliant Park, even the shittiness that is what is it, Musugan Phantom World or whatever that is. Their character designs are basically.
I almost forgot about that
Uniform.
show.
I know. I'm sorry I brought it up, but just to illustrate the point,
Sorry.
the character design is pretty much almost exactly the same the whole way through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just looks a bit better over the
Yes,
years.
the quality goes up. So that's what I feel like. I feel like quality will go up. Like, for instance, I feel like we're going to see a lot of companies doing kind of what Violet Evergarden did with like what's the word I'm looking for there? With like filters, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Filters and also cinematography elements implemented into what they
That'd be
were
nice.
showcasing.
Yeah, I feel like it looks as as cinematic as it does
Yeah.
because of their use of lighting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
filters. That to me is because if you look at the standard Violet Evergarden shots, there's nothing too crazy. I mean, some of the shots are even something that you would see in other shows, but the way lighting is used, the way like they frame the lighting, and the way sometimes they layer on filters either behind characters or in front of characters and all this, I believe that's what made it stand out and make it look as cinematic as it does.
No, yeah.
And I can see that happening a lot more now that you have more of these animation studios at least branching out to computers and stuff like this.
Oh, yeah.
And you can start seeing the melding. You can start seeing how kind of about a rotoscope some of their character movements. You could tell it's rotoscoped. You could tell it was either CG rotoscoped or actually rotoscoped. But either way you can tell, but it looks good, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the Batman anime.
That's what
That's the
that's
one
actually
we're talking
yeah,
about, okay.
exactly. So and so like I said with those things, like I feel I can get better. That's why I feel like
Yeah,
music
well,
can get better.
That's what I'm
Music can get better.
That's what I'm saying.
It
They
will
can
get
get
better.
Yeah.
I hope.
Looking back,
I
my
had
hope.
I had those two things as my top two, but after
Yeah.
hearing your little spiel, I think I swapped the order I have them. I personally, would agree with having the music a bit more.
Because for me,
and
I
native
believe that's
being
it's the next big thing. Because like we said, we're starting to see companies realize it. Your name is a little has that cinematic feel to it as
Yeah.
well.
Kind
And
of.
kind of. Like I said, it's like a weird kind of mixture of the two. It has its moments that I'm just like
Yeah.
this. I
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it's coming up a little bit more and stuff like that. So I feel like music should be the next push. It should be
better
the
story
next.
should be the
I would
next
hope
push.
so.
See the
I
thing.
I
with
don't have any gripes with stories, to be honest.
The thing. Oh, sorry. I don't know where.
No, that was just my one. Like for me, in referencing in referencing storytelling, I'm more of a fan of what the Eastern style shit does in terms of like, let's develop our characters, let's have a bunch of interpersonal conflicts, and let's go with some things that relate to whatever the fuck they're going. As opposed to this Western approach is like, who gives a fuck about the characters? Explosions, yeah. Look at this bad guy come in. Now look at them fuck shit up. How are they gonna react? Who's gonna react? This guy, main character number 1, I guess.
I would like a melding of the two, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
I mean, because I do feel like action things can progress story arcs
Yeah,
really
they're
well.
the wonderful catalyst. It's just that
Yeah.
I feel like when they're too,
It depends on focus,
yeah,
what it's focused on. I think, yeah. So I mean, because storytelling hasn't changed.
yeah. For me, I'd rather have the storytelling like out of the
You,
two.
you can say whatever you will, but your basic structure for storytelling hasn't changed.
I'm not saying
hasn't changed since-
structure. I think they just need better stories.
And
That's saying the same thing though.
But that just has to do with the that has to do with volume now. That has to do with there being
then your argument is
yeah,
is there not 20 good shows if
There
the
should
stories
be.
haven't
Yeah,
changed?
there should be. There
Yeah,
should be.
so-
There should be. There just should be.
Uh,
But
I don't know how much of that is detracted from the source material itself, given there's a lot of shitty source material,
that's what I'm
or how
saying.
much
Yeah.
of that would come from like what the animation studios have in.
that's
They
that's
just
a
need to
big thing.
choose
That's
better.
that's a big thing as well.
I don't
Because there's a
think-
lot of
it's not-
source
it's not-
material
it's-
out there.
it's
Yeah,
not it's not all the time like the source material is shit. Like
no, I'm not saying that it is.
Let's I mean if we take film for instance, I can think of a lot of good source material with really shitty films
Yeah.
that come
every
No, that's what-
DC film that has come out.
What? You're saying DC's bad?
No, DC Comics is amazing.
No, DC.
No, we're talking about
movies.
the
DC
movies.
films.
Yes.
That live action films are
Yes.
all awful.
Yes.
DC films suck. And I mean, if we're going to talk source material, I do believe DC stories are better than
Yeah,
Marvel's.
personally, I like the DC stories a bit
darker.
more.
Well, not always, but they're just better. They're just better
Yeah.
written. They're just
And not just
No,
because it's
yeah.
not like not to be confused with the idea that like because it's gritty or dark. No, it's just like the
No.
way it's developed and what they actually push for and what they center
Well,
their
they're
story
less
building
afraid
with.
of doing stuff too.
Ah,
Nah,
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Like if we're talking from the comic side of things,
don't think so?
no,
no, I don't think so.
no,
either.
I don't. I don't. But if we take but like I said, if we talk about adaptations or taking source material and adapting it, then yeah, you see big issues. And I feel like anime does the same thing sometimes.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
A lot of times.
Berserk, the newer one, where you have absolutely wonderful source material with the absolute garbage that came out of it.
Was the story bad or just?
Everything.
Yeah, it's just bad.
Everything.
It's just badly
Okay.
paced. It's badly animated. It's just bad. It's just very bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could take its older counterpart, which is a lot better. I mean, it's still not a perfect adaptation, but it's better. So, I mean, you can take that as you will. But yeah, I do feel like that can see, because I feel like good stories will come out as is.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they'll come. Those are things that I'm not too worried about, because I understand that it just they just happen. They just come
Yeah.
out
Well,
and
yeah.
stuff, and that's more on studios whether or not it's adapted in certain ways, right? And
Yeah.
judging on their idea of pacing and stuff like this. But but on the technical side of things, I mean, because that's very much like a macro kind of deal.
With that
But-
and Nathaniel, though, I think that how meta Shirobako was in terms of referencing that
Oh, it's
same.
such a good
I think
show.
and how it references that these particular issues that we're talking about was actually pretty. I don't want to exclusively say insightful, but also like I guess entertaining and a bunch of other
it
positives.
was a good show.
It was really fucking good. But like
I learned a
a
lot.
scene that comes to mind right now is when the writer of the book was like, "No, this isn't my book. This isn't what you guys are doing. No, stop doing this." And like, "Oh, we'll just do this." And fuck it, it'll work good because the system. Yeah.
And it doesn't. And I mean, that's I don't know if that's on like producers. Probably more on producer side of things than sometimes even the studio.
That's what I
itself.
would assume. Yeah.
That's usually your bigger one. Your producers are your bigger thing. But yeah, that's what I really wish would happen. It would change and stuff, and that's what I'm hoping gets better as time progresses. You know, that's what I would really want. I mean, like I love openings, and I love the emphasis on openings, but I feel like the rest of the show needs some love.
Yeah.
from the music department.
Yeah.
It's like going to the gym and only working out your forearms. It's like, what about them legs, though?
Forearms.
What about stop skipping leg, dude, my dude?
Not even that. It's just like it's just working your biceps and not working your triceps. So you're like your arm is just deformed.
Poofy on the top, and that's it.
It's like the people who work their quads and not their hamstrings. So they go to run and they rip their hamstrings because their quads are too strong.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happens. So so that's kind of what I would hope, you know. Because I can see cinematography progressing slightly in shows, especially on higher budget stuff. So that's good to see. That's good. That makes me happy. I just need music to do it as well.
Yeah.
So there's that. So I know. Do you want to talk about Overlord? Because I feel like that was the only show we were going to talk about, just because we're going to make it a weekly.
This arc's
thing.
going to be brought up again. Like this isn't the last time we're going to see the village or as the central.
I didn't feel like it. I just thought we'd kind of
talk about
focus
the
on
episode.
one show a season and just kind of go.
What I really like about this arc, not really spoilers, but like just in terms of like storytelling,
Yeah.
is that it's a nice snapshot for me of the world that's going on around them in terms of like this village and like in terms of like this continent, or not this continent, like this country, I should
Yes.
say, and how their feelings are with everything that's happening at the moment, because they reference quite a lot in terms of some big shit's going on, and it goes back to the village. How are they reacting? Oh God.
Ooh, but I mean, if we're gonna talk about like if we're gonna talk about the episode weekly, I like it a lot. I feel like I like the growing of it. And I like the growing of the different characters. I always liked. I like it when a show has an overpowered character, which is likable,
Yeah.
but it understands that you can't always focus on this character.
It's
Like
not
One
all
Punch
him.
Man.
Yeah,
essentially.
like One Punch Man. So you kind of have to bring the focus onto all these other minor characters that grow because of the overpoweredness of
And
the
how
main
they
character.
react
Yeah,
to with
yeah.
everything that's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how it you can actually see how it changes the world. And I feel like it shows the change a lot more efficiently than if you were just to follow Ainz around doing this stuff.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
that makes the sense. And I think that's one of the big things I appreciate of the show so much. Is like I love Ainz as a character. I love him. All the characters in the Tomb of Nazareth are pretty great.
Oh yeah.
I love them and all of their crazy overpoweredness, and they're just good characters. But I really do appreciate the way the writer kind of shows their influence on the world from the perspective of the people that
Yeah.
they're influencing.
Yeah.
And I feel like this show, even with this episode, it kind of it helps portray that. You see these characters grow to be almost bigger than they would have been
Yeah.
if they would have just lived out the normal lives they did.
Yeah.
Something I'm gonna like about, I don't know how far we'll get to, like not just this season, but like I'm talking about like
Yeah.
the future arcs.
Yeah.
But like there's a lot of future arcs that come up where they're almost always just focused on everyone else reacting to this shit. Like, oh God, what's happening? And like the storytelling that goes along with the I guess the whole reaction cam of these events is pretty interesting for me. Something else I really like and wanted to point out was with the two leaders reference of both Henri and with Ainz. It's
Yeah.
nice to see how they approach everything, because with Henri you have someone that's really empathetic, someone who genuinely goes out of her way and puts all of her effort into making sure that everyone is addressed too. And not to say that Ainz doesn't, but like she cares so much about this that it's basically her life. Whereas with Ainz, it's like him working towards a goal that just so coincides with everyone else kind of following it and then like going into it. It seems like a sharp contrast from like I want to say like a selfish approach
Yeah.
into how they carry themselves to another one that's like completely selfless.
Tangent question. Technically, can Ainz have empathy?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you notice,
Because what are the limits of his like weird limiting?
so if you notice,
thing?
along with just referencing the anime here,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
moments where you see him react and feel lots of things.
Yes,
He feels
yes,
anger,
yes,
he feels
yes.
depression. It just when it reaches certain limits, when it's just
It'll-
reined back to like a
Okay.
neutral state of being.
Okay.
So similarly, it's not like empathy is like this one thing. It's like
Yeah.
it's something that encompasses a general sentiment. So
Okay.
having a lot of moments where he feels and also kind of double dips into feeling for things, it is there. But something to remember is that he's kind of what's the word? Not dull to, but desensitized to a lot of shit because the big numbers they have to work with in terms of the big events he handles and everything else. Like a bunch of lives seem rather insignificant for him.
Yeah.
As you can reference with the meeting of him, Henri, and Nefri, and the cute little girl. He's like, oh yeah, last second, maybe I should care about this. Who was the little sister of one of the two people that he had to care about. So he does, and he kind of doesn't, because it's not to the full extent that would be able to.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
He does get a little desensitized because of just being a lich in general, doesn't he? He loses a little bit of his humanity.
But also that, and also it's just his general who he is as a person. But the lich thing is brought up pretty nicely. I don't know if it's going to be brought up, but as a side story that goes on, there's a soliloquy, if you would, or like a dialogue that he goes where he's reflecting a lot about himself, and there is a moment where he thinks how. Well, he acknowledges how little he cares for a lot of things, or how little he cares for a lot of other people, just because of how much that elder lich personality is influencing who he is.
Does it ever say what he was before?
Like a dude, or
no, like what he did.
Just some company worker, just average cubicle man.
Oh, okay, all right, that makes sense then. All right, I was just wondering. I'm like, if he was like calculating like an accountant or something, I don't know. Who knows?
Even if he was, it was just the same methodology that the average salary man would go about doing.
Yeah, it's true. There's like a what's the word I'm looking for? I was gonna probably make up some big word that doesn't exist.
Make it up anyway.
His like the desensitization, something like that. Of being a salary man. It's not a word. That's why I said I don't think it's a word.
Sensation.
But I guess the sentiment carries over.
Yeah, the sentiment carries over. That's why I was like, in my head I was trying to play it. It didn't sound right.
English is fun.
But the idea that he would already be desensitized from just being a salary man because of that whole cultural spiel.
Yeah.
Going into
hates his life. Basically.
Sure. Yeah. Well.
It references how much he loves and cares for this game and how much time he's put into it, enough to show that this is probably like the main thing keeping him going in life. Like, unlike the guy from Gate who works exclusively to fund money so he can go to these events, it seems like this guy works and there's nothing else to him as a person or as a character aside from the time and effort he's able to put into this game too.
Almost like Yggdrasil is the reality versus I guess his real life is not being.
Yeah.
As like the bad dream, I guess you could say, right?
In essence, yeah.
Yeah, in essence. Okay. And that makes sense. But yeah, so I mean, I like this episode. I like it a lot. And I like where it's progressing.
How did you feel about the staged attack that was going on with the village? And how long did it take for you to realize that it was a staged attack?
It took me the second watch through.
Last episode. Because he mentions it. Because he was going to, have him do something. And they talked about reviving Goo and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's Goo.
Well, when he didn't heal, I was like, "Oh, that is that character."
Yeah, whatever that was. So when it started, I was just like, "Oh, this is done by." Because he did say in the episode previous as well that he was going to try to test Lupus Regina and all that stuff as well, right? So I figured something like that would happen in this episode, which was nice to see come to fruition.
It's nice to think of this both stories going on at the same time, which they are. Of him just kind of dicking around and like giving his workers, which he's kind of been working kind of relentlessly, some time off so they can all just relax for a little bit. Whereas with Henri, it's like, oh god, it's crunch time type of scenario.
Exactly.
I do like how they showed their different type of smarts that they have. Like
Sasuga Einzukan.
Yeah.
Sasuga Einzuma.
I do like how I forgot his name. The kid with the long hair that blocks his eyes.
Nefri.
Yeah. I do like how they showed him like how he could make up almost any potions, and he also can cast magic and stuff. I didn't fully realize
Basic
that.
shit, yeah. That fucking knee to the gut that he took.
Oh. When the blood came out, I'm just like, how hard do you have to be hit that your insides are just like, well, we're not here anymore.
I guess in put in perspective, it'd be like kind of getting run over, but like I think it'd be like something maybe going like 30 or 40 maybe, and just pelted 40, really badly.
Even with his armor spell, good lord, to spit out blood like that. It's
On
just
another
you got
note,
hit
I really
hard.
appreciate Honoree's voice actress. I
Yeah.
think she does a really good job.
Yeah.
The moment when she hit the higher pitched Neffy out of
Yeah.
like concern for him, I'm like, oh god, it's really nice.
My
Good
heart.
couple. Good couple.
They're good. I like them. I like the show. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah.
Excited to see. I'm very excited to see where it goes.
I'm excited.
I'm very excited to see where it goes. And then when it ends,
I
I'm gonna feel sad.
I think
Yep.
next we get the meeting between Joseph and Ainz, along with I think it'll go into the rating of the tomb,
Oh, okay.
into the fleece,
Yeah.
or into the Splatfest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because it makes me sad because I'm pretty sure it's going to be a very long time before we get a season 4.
If it even happens.
If it even happens.
Last they mentioned when they were talked about the release of season 3, it was that all the studios were booked until what 2019 is what they said.
Well, Madhouse was
Yeah.
because Madhouse is the studio that's doing it. The only thing
but
is,
I'm glad there was a consistency of like, hey, let's turn to them again because they,
and
they were there for-
actually, it's the only sequel they've ever done.
Yeah.
If you look in the history of
Yeah.
Madhouse, it is the only sequel they've ever done.
the only one they need.
Yep. And pretty much the only reason why we have a season 3 in the first place is
Because
because
they bought them at the same
they
time.
booked both seasons at the same time. So that's why it's one of those things that because even like One Punch Man's not being done by Madhouse, even though the first
No.
season was, second season's not.
But then again, the demand for it is
Yeah.
so high that
That-
I kind of get.
Yeah.
I kind of get. I just
If there's
I,
the same amount of demand, I could see it going somewhere
I
else.
really appreciate the fact that they turned back to Madhouse to be like, hey, we want to do this coming season, and we like what you did. Please just work this out with us.
It's a good show. I mean, I'm happy that the first one to break that streak
Yeah, me too.
is Overlord.
Me too.
Because looking back, I mean, I like their older shows, but I'm happy this is the one that kind of breaks the mold.
For me,
of that.
it'll be the show that defines the studio for me.
I can't fully say that because I mean, I looking nostalgia wise, I can't fully say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good show and I like it a lot. It defines the modern studio for me, but I understand where its roots come from and they're big roots in my eyes. But
right.
but I appreciate a lot of what they've done with this show.
I really appreciate how they reference a lot of other characters they've already introduced. Like in the beginning of this arc, there was Hamusuke training with the lizard men and trying to get him a skill.
Yeah, so that was great. But yeah, so I'm excited to see where it goes, and I think it's probably a good spot to end it from here. And next week we'll come back and probably talk about some other thing, and talk about next week's episode of Overlord as well, because I'm excited to watch this one bit by bit with the man who's actually read the source material. So we good in there? Yes, we good.
Yeah,
We
like,
good.
subscribe,
Perfect.
blah, blah,
Yeah, all that bullshit. If you find us and whatnot, share, or I guess
blah. Tell a
eventually.
friend.
Also,
Eventually
have a
we
friend.
will.
Jaden, if you come up with any things that you'd like us to talk about, just feel free to let me know. Dude.
Tell us.
Please.
All right. Peace. Have a good time. Bye.